When a queen offers you her tiara for your wedding day, you say yes. Right? Well, not always. 3 royal brides were offered tiaras from the family collection, pieces worth millions, historic, beautiful, and all 3 said no, or chose something completely different. These aren't stories about superstition, these are stories about strategy, about Diana's ghost, about Russian scandals, and about knowing when to refuse a crown. Today, I'm showing you the tiaras that were refused, and the surprising reasons why. Because sometimes the most powerful choice a bride can make is saying no to a queen. Let's unlock these secrets. April 29th, 2011, Westminster Abbey. The world was watching Kate Middleton marry Prince William, and everyone had the same question. Which tiara would she wear? There was one obvious choice, one piece everyone expected to see, the lover's knot tiara. This tiara was famous, iconic, instantly recognizable. Queen Mary commissioned it in 1913 from Garrard. 19 diamond arches, 38 hanging pearls. Absolutely spectacular, and it had been Princess Diana's favourite. Diana wore it constantly, to state banquets, on royal tours, in some of her most famous photographs. When Diana danced with John Travolta at the White House in 1989, she wore the lover's knot. When she visited Hong Kong in her famous Elvis dress, the lover's knot sparkled in her hair. It became synonymous with her. So when Kate prepared to marry William, Diana's son, everyone assumed she'd wear Diana's tiara. The symbolism would have been perfect. A link between past and future, between William's mother and his wife. But Kate said no. She chose the Cartier Halo Tiara instead, a much smaller piece, less dramatic, less famous, made in 1936. Given to Queen Elizabeth II on her 18th birthday, but never worn by her publicly. It's actually called a starter tiara, something appropriate for younger royals. Something modest. Why would Kate refuse the lover's knot? Here's what I think, and what royal experts have suggested. Kate was 29 years old, marrying the future king, under intense scrutiny, and everyone was comparing her to Diana. Every dress, every gesture, every smile. If she wore Diana's most famous tiara, she wouldn't be Kate. She'd be Diana's replacement, and that's a role you can never win. So Kate made a brilliant choice. She wore something that had never been worn publicly by anyone famous. Something that could be hers. Not Diana's, not the Queen's, hers. And you know what's fascinating? Years later, Kate did start wearing the lover's knot. She wore it for the first time in 2015, 4 years after her wedding. By then, she was established. Confidence, the Princess of Wales in her own right. She'd earned Diana's tiara, on her own terms. But on her wedding day, she knew better than to step into someone else's shadow, even when that shadow belonged to one of the most beloved women in the world. May 19th, 2018, Windsor Castle. Meghan Markle was about to marry Prince Harry, and behind the scenes there was drama brewing. Tiara drama. According to multiple sources, including Prince Harry's own memoir, Meghan had gone to Buckingham Palace to choose her wedding tiara. Queen Elizabeth II offered her a selection, 5 options from the royal vaults, and Meghan fell in love with one in particular, an emerald tiara, specifically the Greville Emerald Kokoshnik. This piece was stunning, made by Boucheron in 1919, a massive central emerald surrounded by diamonds in the Russian Kokoshnik style. It had never been worn publicly. Not once, not in 99 years. Meghan thought it was perfect. Harry agreed. They asked if she could wear it. The Queen said no. Now, different versions of this story exist. Some say there was a heated argument. Others say it was handled diplomatically. But the result was the same. Meghan couldn't have the emerald tiara. Why? Here's the official reason. The tiara's origin was unclear. It was believed to have come from Russia. After the 1917 revolution, when the Romanov family was executed, royal jewels from that period often have murky histories. They were smuggled out, sold under pressure, sometimes stolen. The palace didn't want Meghan wearing something that might be connected to the murder of a royal family. Can you imagine the headlines? The scandal? So Meghan was steered toward a different choice. Queen Mary's diamond bandeau. This tiara was made in 1932. Art Deco style. All diamonds. Clean provenance. The centerpiece is actually a brooch, given to Queen Mary as a wedding present in 1893 by the County of Lincoln. Meghan wore it beautifully. She told reporters later that she was fortunate to choose this gorgeous tiara. But here's where the story gets really interesting. 6 months later, October 2018, Princess Eugenie got married, and she wore the Greville Emerald Kokoshnik, the exact tiara Meghan had been refused. Let that sink in for a moment. The tiara that was too controversial for Meghan appeared at another royal wedding 6 months later. Now, Eugenie is Queen Elizabeth's granddaughter. She's born royal. Her wearing it was different. But it still raised questions. Was the controversy about the tiara or about Meghan? We'll never know for certain. What we do know is this. Meghan learned a hard lesson about royal protocol. You don't get what you want. You get what you're given. And sometimes, even asking for the wrong thing can create a crisis. June 19th, 1999, St. George's Chapel, Windsor. Sophie Rhys-Jones was marrying Prince Edward, Queen Elizabeth's youngest son. By now, you're seeing the pattern. Every royal bride faces the tiara question. And Sophie had a particular challenge. She was marrying into a family still healing from Diana's death, still recovering from the scandal, still figuring out how to handle public relations in a new era. Sophie needed to make a statement, but the right statement. She was offered several tiaras from the collection, including pieces with Diana connections, but Sophie made a surprising choice. She wore a piece that had never been seen before, a tiara that, technically, didn't even exist yet. The Queen had it specially made for her. Or rather, assembled. It was created from pieces in the royal collection, but the final configuration was new. This was strategic genius. Sophie didn't wear Diana's jewels. She didn't compete with history. She didn't step into anyone's shadow. she created her own legacy with a tiara that was uniquely hers. Later, she wore other pieces from the collection: the aquamarine tiara, the Wessex aquamarine necklace tiara. But on her wedding day, she refused the weight of history and chose something that could be hers alone. July 17th, 2020. The Royal Chapel of All Saints. Princess Beatrice was getting married, in secret, during lockdown. No big ceremony, just family, just love. And when it came to her tiara, Beatrice made a choice that surprised everyone. She wore Queen Mary's fringe tiara, the exact same tiara that Queen Elizabeth II wore at her own wedding in 1947. Now this sounds lovely, sentimental, traditional. But here's what makes it interesting. Beatrice's mother, Sarah Ferguson, also had a tiara. The York Diamond Tiara. It was commissioned by Queen Elizabeth II as a wedding gift for Sarah in 1986. Sarah still owns it. It's her personal property. And the assumption was, Beatrice would wear her mother's tiara. That's what daughters usually do, especially when the tiara is available. Meaningful, right there. But Beatrice didn't. She chose the Queen's wedding tiara instead. Why? I think it's about complicated family dynamics. Sarah Ferguson's relationship with the royal family has been difficult. Scandals, divorces, years of being frozen out. Wearing Sarah's tiara might have emphasized those divisions, but wearing the Queen's tiara, that was a bridge, a gesture of belonging, of being welcomed back into the fold. Beatrice was saying, I'm a York, but I'm also a royal, and I belong here. It was a refusal wrapped in an acceptance. She didn't reject her mother, but she chose her grandmother's crown. And that choice said everything about navigating a complicated family. Now let me tell you about a different kind of refusal, not at a wedding, but after a divorce. In 1995, Alexandra Manley married Prince Joachim of Denmark. Queen Margrethe II gave Alexandra a wedding gift. A spectacular gift. The Alexandrine Diamond Drop Tiara. This piece was created around 1912. Diamond arches. Briolette-cut diamond drops hanging like dewdrops. It had been Queen Alexandrine's, then King Frederick IX's, then Queen Margrethe received it on her 18th birthday, and Margrethe gave it to her new daughter-in-law, not as a loan, as a gift. Alexandra owned it. She wore it proudly for 10 years. State banquets, royal events. It became her signature piece. And then, the marriage ended. In 2005, Alexandra and Joachim divorced, and Alexandra faced a choice. The tiara was legally hers. She could keep it, wear it, even sell it if she wanted. But she didn't. She gave it back. Not because she had to, but because she chose to. This was extraordinary. Royal jewels almost never return once they're gifted. But Alexandra understood something important. Keeping the tiara would have been seen as greedy, disrespectful, a final insult to the family. Giving it back, that was grace. That was understanding that some gifts come with invisible strings, And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do with a crown is to take it off and walk away. So here's what these stories teach us. Kate refused Diana's shadow. Meghan was refused for asking the wrong question. Sophie refused to compete with history. Beatrice refused her mother's complicated legacy. And Alexandra refused to keep what was never really hers. 5 women, 5 crowns, 5 different ways of saying no. Because here's the truth about royal jewels. They're never just diamonds and gold. They're symbols. They're statements. They're choices about who you are and who you refuse to become. And sometimes, the bravest thing a bride can do is look at the most beautiful tiara she's ever seen and say, no thank you. That takes more courage than wearing a crown ever could. If this changed how you see royal weddings, I'd love a like on this video. Subscribe for more untold stories from the royal vaults. And drop a comment. If you were offered a tiara with a complicated history, would you wear it? Or would you do what these women did and choose your own path? Because sometimes the most powerful jewellery is the kind you refuse to wear. Thanks for watching. See you next time.